Hi guys, so apparently people are still talking about the whole Rey, Mary Sue, overpowered character thing. This is my third video on the subject. What the hell? I'm a teacher, I'm on holidays, I've got nothing better to do at this particular moment. Oh, and by the way, say hello to Flipper. Hello, Flipper is my little teaching partner. Yeah, is he? Okay, so he's just going to sit there out of the way. Alright, so let's talk about this, and this video I want to talk a bit about Rey v Luke Skywalker, comparing Rey to Luke Skywalker in A New Hope, because I think that's where a lot of people are having problems, because a lot of the discussion has been Rey is so overpowered compared to Luke in the first movies. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this. Luke Skywalker couldn't do any of that. Well, let's look at how these characters are very, very different. Luke Skywalker basically had everything provided for him. You know, he sat on a farm, he got his glass of blue milk 3 times a day from his Aunt Beru. He had a bed. He was fairly comfortable. He even had his little model aircraft that he could play around with in the garage when he wasn't dreaming about going to the academy or, you know, nicking off to Toshi Station to get some power converters. Luke's biggest problem for that part of his life seems to have been boredom. You know, so I'm not saying this to rag on Luke Skywalker. I'm just saying that was his situation. You know, here was a guy who was living fairly comfortably on a farm owned by his aunt and uncle who were rich enough to be able to buy droids. Now, you compare that to Rey, she's a very different character. She's living by herself in the wreck of an AT-AT. You know, she's living on what look like to be starvation rations. She only manages to get those rations by climbing around inside the wreck of, you know, old Star Destroyers. Now, you think about just how dangerous that would be. If you found the wreck of the USS Nimitz, a nuclear aircraft carrier that was carrying thousands of rounds of live explosive ordnance, would you go poking around in it? I wouldn't. But that's what she has to do, which, by the way, is probably where she learned some of those mechanical skills, some of those engineering skills, because you'd have to know which button to push and which button not to push in order not to blow yourself up while you were scavenging around inside this thing. The place where she's living looks like the poor quarter of Mos Eisley, so yeah, she probably did learn to fight, and people are using all sorts of different languages, so yeah, she probably did learn to become multilingual. You know, now you just compare that to Finn. You know, Finn's not going to be multilingual because he's an Imperial Stormtrooper. Those guys never learn to speak anything but English. So, obviously, she is going to be a very different character to Luke with a very different skill set. She's had a much harder upbringing, and she has to be a survivor. She has to be able to fight. She has to be able to speak different languages. She has to be able to be a mechanical engineer. Now, her piloting skills, well, how much are we actually given as a setup for Luke's piloting skills? There's a couple of throwaway lines. Oh, I understand you've become quite a good pilot yourself, you know, and then Luke's own line, I'm not just a bad pilot. Yeah, okay, but come on, that's you saying that. And then Biggs says, oh, you know, he's the best pilot in the Outer Rim territories. All right, so we got 3 throwaway lines, but we never actually see him do any of that stuff before he climbs into the cockpit of an X-Wing. Rey, by comparison, has only 1 line, and that is, we need a pilot, I've got one. But really, there's not that much more setup for her piloting skills than there is for Luke. So then we've got fighting. Now, you know, Rey is a good fighter. She seems to be a better hand-to-hand combatant than Finn, who's a trained Imperial or First Order Stormtrooper. But come on, guys. How many people in Star Wars have we seen who are better hand-to-hand fighters than trained stormtroopers? I mean, their best Legion got beaten up by the Ewoks. So, you know, come on. It's not like that is entirely without precedent. So she is a good fighter. She is multilingual. She's got all of these skills. The biggest problem that people seem to have is with her Force abilities. The only truly baffling thing that she seems to do at first glance is to overpower Kylo Ren in the Mind Probe when he's doing that. But then again, we've never seen a scene like this before, with a trained Force user mind-probing a person who's naturally strong with the Force but not trained, so we don't really know how that would go. The only thing that we've seen that comes close to this is the Vader-Leia interrogation in Star Wars A New Hope, and it should be pointed out that at that point, Leia is not aware of her Force abilities, whereas Rey clearly has become aware that she has some attunement to the Force, so I think that would probably be a significant factor. Obviously, it's supposed to set up the fact that Rey is very strong in the Force, but again, Luke was very strong in the Force too. So it's not like we're exactly breaking any precedents here that she shouldn't be able to do that, because like I said, we've never seen it done before, and it is obviously an important point of the story because it is the jump start of all of her Force abilities. She only starts doing the really funky Force stuff after that event. So it is obviously set up as something that triggers her latent abilities, and Kylo Ren even says as time goes by she will only become more powerful now. Now, this brings us to the second point, Kylo Ren. People saying that Rey is overpowered because she was able to overpower him. It is established multiple times in the movie that the Wookiee bowcaster is an extremely powerful weapon. At one point, we see it take out 3 stormtroopers with one shot, one explosive shot, and this is the thing that Kylo Ren gets shot with on the bridge. And then afterwards we can see that he's wounded, we can see that he's bleeding. So obviously he is very badly injured. I can't really understand why people have a problem understanding just how badly injured he is. Compare him to Darth Maul or even Luke Skywalker when they were fully trained. We see both of these characters able to leap around, jump, flip. We don't see Kylo Ren doing any of that. So either Luke just didn't bother to train this guy properly, or he is really badly hurt. We see him bleeding. Now, it's a physiological fact that the more you bleed, the weaker you get, which means that as that fight goes on, Kylo is getting weaker and weaker. So Kylo in this fight, to me it seems like he's having to channel the Force, pumping his wound, hurting himself, making himself angrier. He's having to do all that just to stay on his feet. And like I said, the longer the fight goes, the weaker he's getting, the harder it is for him to use the Force. He can only Force wave Rey right at the start of the fight, and then after that he's basically down to his saber skills. Now, Rey also, when she picks up the lightsaber, she starts fighting. She's mad as hell. All right? She is fighting hard. She's angry about the fact that Finn has been hurt, that Han has been killed. Now, what do we know about the Force and you being angry? Well, easy is the path of the dark side. Is the dark side stronger? No. But quicker, easier, and more seductive. Quicker and easier. That means you don't have to have the same level of Jedi training to access the dark side. This is the stuff that will give you instant results with little control. So to me, it doesn't seem unlikely that in that moment where she is fighting Kylo, having had a jump start from his own Force mind meld, by the way, she is probably channeling a bit of the dark side in there, and I think that's probably a point that is going to be explored in later movies. Do I know for sure? No. Is it all explained to me? No. But hey, I don't need everything laid out for me. I like to actually go away and, think about things for myself sometimes. I find that an interesting mental exercise. So yeah, she is mad, and when you finally see her beat Kylo right at the end, have a close look at the look on her face with her standing over him, because to me it looks very similar to the look we saw on Luke's face when he kicked the crap out of Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi, and it is established in lines of dialogue in that movie that his hate has made him powerful. So that's how I see this working. Rey, she's a survivor living in a very tough environment. She's got to be tough. She's got to have a lot of skills. She's clearly strong in the Force. She gets jump-started by Kylo, and in that final fight, he is so badly injured that he can't use all of his Force abilities, or he would be flipping around just like Darth Maul. And Rey is getting stronger because she is tapping into the Force and most likely channeling a bit of the dark side. But hey, that's just me.